You want to know the worst thing that can happen when you're operating under deep cover in a foreign city? It's not getting made by the target. It's not getting compromised by hostile intelligence. It's not even getting shot at in some back alley. It's getting arrested by local police for something you didn't do, something completely unrelated to your mission, while you're carrying a cover identity so deep you can't break it even to save yourself. I'm talking about sitting in a Cairo police station at 2 o'clock in the morning in 1980, watching a tired Egyptian officer flip through a Belgian passport that says you're someone you're not, while 3 blocks away in your hotel room, there's surveillance equipment and photographs that would blow your mission and probably get you kicked out of the country or worse. I'm talking about the moment when random chance intersects with operational reality and you realize that everything, the mission, the intelligence, weeks of careful work depends entirely on whether you can stay in character while every instinct screams at you to fix this now, call someone, pull strings, make it go away. But you can't, because breaking cover means burning the mission. And burning the mission means all of it, every hour of surveillance, every photograph, every carefully documented meeting gone, wasted. So you sit there, you answer the same questions over and over, you maintain the accent, you play the role, you commit completely to being someone you're not, even when that person's about to spend the night in a holding cell because some damn jewelry store got robbed and you happen to be wearing a dark jacket in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. This is about commitment, real commitment, the kind that goes beyond training and doctrine and operational protocols, the kind where you choose discomfort and risk because the alternative is worse, the kind that separates people who can do this work from people who can't. Let me tell you about Cairo, 1980, and the longest night of Claude Fontaine's life, my life, his life. Because when you're undercover that deep, the line between who you are and who you're pretending to be gets real damn thin, real damn fast. Cairo in 1980 was chaos, controlled chaos, but chaos. Sadat was still alive. He wouldn't get assassinated until the following year, and Egypt was in this strange in-between state. Peace treaty with Israel, signed the year before. Soviet influence fading, American money starting to flow in, and every intelligence service in the world had people on the ground trying to figure out what came next. I'd been sent in as Claude Fontaine, Belgian, 53 years old, businessman. I sold agricultural equipment, irrigation systems, grain storage solutions, farming implements, boring as hell, which made it perfect. The agency had built Claude over about 18 months. Not a rush job, a proper legend. He had history. He had documentation. He had business cards and catalogs and a Brussels office address that rang through to a cutout who'd answer in French and Flemish and confirm I worked there. He had hotel loyalty cards, a driver's license, credit history, tax records, everything you need to be a real person. I'd been Claude 3 times before this, once in Libya in 78, once in Tunisia, once in Lebanon before it completely fell apart. So Claude had a track record. He'd done business in North Africa. He had contacts. He had references. If Egyptian intelligence checked him out, and they probably would, they'd find exactly what they expected. A middle-aged European selling equipment to developing markets. Nothing interesting, nothing dangerous. I flew into Cairo on a Tuesday morning, Egypt Air flight from Brussels through Rome. 2 suitcases. One had clothes and business documents and sample catalogs. The other had camera equipment broken down into components, film, surveillance logs disguised as sales records, and contact protocols written in a code that looked like personal notes about meetings and prices. Customs waved me through. They always did. Middle-aged white guy in a cheap suit carrying irrigation equipment catalogs, not exactly a security threat. I took a taxi to the hotel, the Nile Hilton, big, anonymous, full of European and American businessmen. Perfect place to disappear into the crowd. I checked in, 4th floor, room 418. Good sight lines to the street, 2 exits from the floor. Always, always, always know your exits. I unpacked carefully. Clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom. Camera components stayed in the false bottom of the suitcase. Surveillance logs stayed hidden in the lining. The film canisters went into a shaving kit with actual shaving supplies on top. If they searched the room and you had to assume a casual search would find nothing. A thorough search would find everything, but a thorough search meant they already suspected something, which meant the mission was already blown anyway. The target was the Egyptian banker named Khalil Mansour, mid-40s, well-connected, on the surface, completely legitimate, managed accounts for government ministries and private clients. Nice house in Zamalek, Mercedes, wife and 3 kids. But Khalil was moving money, a lot of money coming in from Libya and going out to Europe, money that didn't match any legitimate business we could identify, money that looked like it was funding something, arms purchases maybe, or terrorist networks, or payoffs to people we needed to know about. My job was simple: surveillance, documentation, photograph his meetings, identify his contacts, track his patterns, figure out who he was meeting with, and where the money was going. Standard work. I'd done it 100 times. I'd been in Cairo for 9 days when it happened. 9 days of careful, methodical surveillance. I had photographs of Khalil meeting with 3 different people: a Libyan diplomat, a Sudanese businessman, and a Lebanese courier who came in every Thursday like clockwork. I had vehicle plates, I had addresses, I had times and patterns and documentation, everything written down and photographed, because that's what you do. Photos beat a damn bunch of reports every time. On the 9th night, it was a Thursday, around 8 o'clock in the evening, I was sitting in a cafe near Qasr El Nil Street, small place, good angles on the street, and the entrance to an office building where Khalil kept a second office he didn't advertise. I was drinking Turkish coffee too sweet, but Claude drank it anyway and watching the street. The cafe was half full, mostly locals, a few Europeans. I'd been there about 45 minutes, long enough to be comfortable, not long enough to draw attention. Just another European businessman killing time in Cairo. That's when 4 Egyptian police officers walked in and came straight to my table. The lead officer was older, maybe 47, 48, mustache, tired eyes, the kind of eyes that said he'd been doing this job too long and had seen too much. He said something in Arabic I didn't understand. Claude didn't speak Arabic, that was part of the cover. European businessman who relied on translators and guides. It gave me an excuse to move slowly and ask questions and observe without arousing suspicion. I looked up at him, confused, concerned. European businessman interrupted during coffee. "Excusez-moi," I said. "French first." Claude spoke French and English, with French being more natural. He switched to English. "You are coming with us." "I am sorry," I said, keeping the accent thick, Belgian heavy. "I do not understand. What is the problem?" "Stand up. You are coming with us now." My heart rate stayed steady. Claude's would be going up. Claude would be confused and nervous and worried about what this meant. But inside, I was running calculations. Is this operational? Did Khalil's people spot me? Is this a compromise, or is this something else? The officer reached for my arm. Not rough, not gentle, just procedural. Every instinct I had said no. Every instinct said assess the threat, create distance, determine if this is hostile or bureaucratic. But Claude Fontaine didn't have those instincts. Claude Fontaine was a 53-year-old Belgian businessman who sold irrigation systems, and if police told him to come with them, he got nervous and confused and complied, because that's what civilians do. So I stood up, I let him walk me out of the cafe. People were staring. One of the younger officers put a hand on my shoulder, not cuffs, just guidance, and they walked me to a police car parked on the street. They put me in the back, not rough, not aggressive, just businesslike. The older officer got in front. Two younger officers got in on either side of me. The fourth officer stayed behind, probably to talk to the cafe owner. We drove for maybe 15 minutes. I didn't know Cairo well enough yet to track exactly where we were going, but I was watching street names, landmarks, direction. Always, always, always maintain situational awareness, even when you can't do anything with it. We pulled up to a police station, concrete building, 3 stories, bars on the windows. They walked me inside, through a lobby with tired-looking officers sitting at desks, down a hallway that smelled like old cigarettes and sweat, into a small office. Concrete walls, single light bulb, desk with a rotary phone and stacks of paper, 2 chairs. The older officer sat down behind the desk. The younger officer stood by the door. "Your passport," he said. I reached into my jacket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out the Belgian passport. Claude Fontaine, photo matched. 53 years old, born in Bruges, residence Brussels, valid entry stamp for Egypt, dated 10 days earlier. He took it, flipped through the pages. Stamps from Tunisia, Libya, Lebanon, Morocco. All business trips, all legitimate, all part of Claude's history. He looked at the passport, looked at me, looked back at the passport. "You are staying at the Nile Hilton?" "Yes," I said. "Room 418. I am here for business, agricultural equipment. I have meetings with distributors." "What were you doing at the cafe tonight?" "Drinking coffee." I was walking. I stopped for coffee and to rest. "You were watching the building across the street." My heart rate stayed steady. Damn, damn, damn. I do not understand. I was drinking coffee. I was looking at the street. It is a nice evening. I do not know what building you mean. He leaned forward. "There was a robbery tonight, jewelry store, 3 blocks from the cafe around 7 o'clock. That was an hour before I sat down." But I didn't say that. Claude didn't know when the robbery was. Claude didn't even know there was a robbery until this moment. "I do not know about any robbery," I said. Firm but not aggressive. Confused European businessman accused of something absurd. I was walking. I stopped for coffee around 8 o'clock, maybe a little before. I did not rob anyone. I am a businessman. "The suspect," the officer said slowly, carefully, "is described as a European man, 50 to 60 years old. Dark jacket. Alone. Hell. Hell, hell, hell. That described me exactly. Dark jacket. European. 53 years old. Sitting alone 3 blocks from a jewelry store that got robbed an hour before I sat down." I could feel the situation narrowing. Not operationally compromised. Not Khalil's people. Just bad damn luck. Random chance. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong jacket. "I did not rob anyone," I said again. "I am a businessman from Belgium. I sell agricultural equipment. I have documentation. I have business cards. I have meetings scheduled tomorrow with distributors. This is a mistake." He looked at me for a long, long time. Then he said, "We will need to verify your identity." They moved me to a holding cell, small room, concrete bench along one wall, metal door with a slot. One other person in there, local guy, maybe 30, didn't speak English or French, just sat in the corner and stared at the floor. I sat down on the bench, slowly. Claude was tired. Claude was confused. Claude was worried about this absurd misunderstanding and about his business meetings tomorrow and about how long this was going to take. Inside my head, I was running scenarios. Best case, they verify Claude's identity through Brussels, realize he's a legitimate businessman, release him in a few hours, mission intact, back to the hotel, back to surveillance. Khalil never knows anything happened. Worst case, verification takes too long. They hold me overnight. They search my hotel room. They find the camera equipment and surveillance logs. Mission blown, cover blown, probably expelled from the country. Middle case. Verification takes all night, but they don't search the room. I get released tomorrow morning. I can signal the emergency contact protocol, let the agency know what happened, adjust the surveillance plan. Mission damaged but salvageable. The key variable was time. How long would verification take? It was around 9:30 at night, Cairo time. That made it 7:30 in Brussels. The cutout office would still be open for another hour, maybe hour and a half. If they called in the next hour, someone would answer, confirm Claude worked there, confirm his travel to Egypt. Simple, clean, quick. If they called after the office closed, the call would go to an answering service with a message saying the office was closed and to call back during business hours. That would delay verification until tomorrow morning Cairo time, which was 7 or 8 in the morning Brussels time. That meant I'd be here all night in a cell, while my hotel room sat unguarded with surveillance equipment and intelligence logs that would compromise not just this mission, but potentially other operations and other people. But I couldn't do anything about it. That's the thing about cover. Once you commit, you're locked in. You can't break character. You can't call a contact number. You can't pull strings. You can't do any of the things you could do as yourself, because doing those things would reveal that you're not who you say you are. So you wait. You sit in the cell. You maintain the cover. You trust the system to work. You trust the legend to hold up under scrutiny. You trust that the people who built Claude Fontaine built him well enough to survive this. That's what commitment means. Real commitment, not commitment when things are going well. Commitment when everything is going to hell and you can't do a damn thing except sit there and be someone else. I thought about the mission. 9 days of surveillance. 3 identified contacts. Photographs. Vehicle plates. Addresses. Times. Patterns. All of it sitting in my hotel room, hidden in suitcase linings and shaving kits. All of it at risk because some bastard robbed a jewelry store and I happened to be wearing a dark jacket 3 blocks away. Operations don't fail because the enemy is brilliant. They fail because random chance intersects with your mission at exactly the wrong moment, because chaos is always working against you. Because you can plan for 1,000 things, and the 1,001st thing is the one that kills you. But you don't quit. You don't panic. You sit there and you wait and you maintain the cover because that's the job. Around 11 o'clock that night, the door opened. Different officer this time. Younger, maybe 35, more aggressive, less tired. "We called Brussels," he said. No answer. "Damn. The office was closed." "It is late in Brussels," I said. Claude's voice, reasonable, trying to be helpful. "The office is closed for the evening. You can call again in the morning. They open at 8 o'clock Brussels time. That is 9 o'clock Cairo time." "We call the hotel," he said, ignoring what I'd just told him. "You checked in 10 days ago. You have been in Cairo 10 days. "Yes," I said, "for business." "What business have you done?" I listed the meetings. 3 distributors, 2 site visits, all real, all documented. I had their business cards in my wallet. I had notes from the meetings in my hotel room. All of it part of the cover, but all of it verifiable. He wrote it down. Not carefully, just scratching notes on a pad. "Why were you at the cafe tonight?" "I was walking. I stopped for coffee. I like to walk in the evening. It helps me think about business." "You were watching the building across the street." "I was looking at the street. People. Cars. I was relaxing." "I do not know what building you mean." He leaned closer. Intimidation tactic. Basic. "You are lying." I looked at him. Claude looked at him. Confused. A little bit scared, but trying not to show it. "I am not lying. I am a businessman. I came to Cairo to sell agricultural equipment. I have done nothing wrong. This is a mistake, a misunderstanding." He stared at me for maybe 30 seconds. Then he left. Didn't say anything. Just walked out and closed the door. I sat back down on the bench. The thing about being undercover in a cell is that you can't drop the act even when you're alone. You have to assume you're being watched. camera in the ceiling, microphone in the wall. The other guy in the corner could be an informant planted to see if you say something revealing when you think nobody official is listening. So you stay in character, you sit quietly, you look worried but not panicked, you don't mutter to yourself in English with an American accent, you don't rehearse your answers out loud, you don't do anything that breaks the illusion. You just sit there and be Claude. The guy in the corner had fallen asleep, snoring softly. Lucky bastard. I thought about the surveillance. Khalil met with the Lebanese courier every Thursday around 6 o'clock in the evening. Like clockwork, I had 3 weeks of documentation showing the pattern. If I got out of here tomorrow morning, I could catch the next meeting next Thursday. If I didn't get out until tomorrow afternoon, I'd miss it. If I got held longer than that, the whole pattern might shift and I'd have to start over. Starting over meant more time, more risk, more exposure. Every day you're in a foreign city undercover. You're rolling the dice. Every interaction is a chance to get made. Every conversation is a test. Every day increases the probability that something goes wrong. This wasn't supposed to be one of those things. This was just bad luck. Random chance. Wrong jacket, wrong place, wrong time. But bad luck kills missions just as dead as good enemy counterintelligence. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe 1:30, hard to tell without a watch. They'd taken my watch when they brought me in. The door opened again. The older officer from before. He looked exhausted. His shift probably should have ended hours ago, but here he was dealing with a robbery case that wasn't getting solved because they'd grabbed the wrong guy. We spoke to someone in Brussels, he said. Thank God. Thank God, thank God, thank God. My face showed relief. Claude's relief. Genuine relief that this misunderstanding was finally getting cleared up. They confirmed you work for the company, the officer continued. Agricultural equipment sales. Yes, I said. I told you. I am a salesman. I have been with the company for 12 years. I travel for business. I came to Cairo to meet with distributors. He sat down on the bench across from me, tired, done with this case, done with this night. The robbery suspect, he said slowly, was seen running east from the jewelry store at 7:15. The cafe where you were sitting is west of the jewelry store. The cafe owner says you arrived at the cafe around 8 o'clock, maybe a few minutes before you ordered coffee. You sat alone. You did not leave until we arrived. I said nothing, just waited. You could not have been at the jewelry store at 7:15 and at the cafe at 8 o'clock. They are in opposite directions. I nodded, still said nothing, let him work through it. The description was approximate. Many European men in Cairo, many wearing dark jackets. Another nod. He looked at me for a long, long time. Then he stood up. You can go. They released me at 2 o'clock in the morning. No apology. No explanation beyond you can go. They gave me back my wallet, my watch, my passport. The older officer walked me to the front of the station, said something in Arabic to the desk officer, and gestured toward the door. I walked out into the Cairo night, warm, dusty, the sound of a few cars in the distance, street lights casting yellow pools on the pavement. The city never really sleeps, but at 2 in the morning it slows down enough that you can hear yourself think. Claude would have been relieved, shaken but relieved. He would have flagged down a taxi immediately and gone straight back to the hotel, and probably had a stiff drink to settle his nerves before trying to sleep. I was relieved too. But I was also running operational protocols. I walked 4 blocks before I looked for a taxi. 4 blocks in different directions, checking to see if anyone was following. They weren't. This wasn't surveillance. This was just bureaucratic release after bureaucratic detention. I found a taxi on a main street, told the driver to take me to a different hotel, not the Nile Hilton, the Sheraton, about 2 miles away, paid him, went into the lobby, found the payphone, made a call to a number that rang twice and disconnected. That was the signal. Emergency contact protocol. 2 rings meant I'm okay, but something happened. The agency would know to check for follow-up communication. If I didn't make contact within 24 hours, they'd assume I was compromised and activate extraction protocols. Then I left the Sheraton, walked another 3 blocks, flagged another taxi, and went back to the Nile Hilton. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, went up to the 4th floor, walked slowly past room 418. No signs of forced entry, no signs of surveillance. Door looked exactly as I'd left it, matchstick in the lower hinge still in place, faint pencil mark on the door frame still aligned. I unlocked the door, went inside, locked it behind me, turned on the light. Everything was where I'd left it. Suitcase, clothes, toiletries. I checked the false bottom of the suitcase, camera components still there. Checked the lining, surveillance logs still there. Checked the shaving kit, film canisters still there. Nothing had been searched. Nothing had been disturbed. From an operational standpoint, nothing had been compromised. I sat down on the bed. The mission was intact. Claude Fontaine had been arrested, questioned, verified, and released. The police thought they'd grabbed the wrong guy and let him go. Khalil didn't know. Egyptian intelligence didn't know. Nobody knew except me and whoever answered the phone in Brussels and whoever monitored the emergency contact line. But I'd spent 4.5 hours in a holding cell, unable to do a damn thing except be someone I wasn't. That's what cover means. That's what commitment means. You step into a life that isn't yours, and sometimes that life gets you into situations your real self would handle completely differently. Claude Fontaine couldn't fight. Claude couldn't intimidate. Claude couldn't call in favors or pull rank or make the problem disappear. Claude could only sit quietly and wait for the system to verify that he was exactly who he said he was. And that takes patience, real patience, not the passive kind where you sit around hoping things get better. The active kind where you consciously choose discomfort and risk because the alternative, breaking cover, blowing the mission, is worse. I stayed in Cairo for another 12 days after that. I moved hotels the next morning, told the Nile Hilton I'd received news of a family issue and needed to relocate to be closer to the embassy district, paid the bill, took my luggage, and checked into a smaller hotel under the same name. I adjusted the surveillance pattern. I stopped going to that cafe. I used different routes. I varied my timing. But I kept working. I documented 2 more meetings between Khalil and the Lebanese courier. I identified a 4th contact, a French businessman who turned out to be an arms dealer. I photographed everything. I wrote everything down. I brought back 27 rolls of film, 3 notebooks full of observations, and a complete pattern analysis of Khalil's movements and contacts. The mission was complete, successful. Nobody except the agency ever knew that for 4.5 hours in the middle of it, I was sitting in a Cairo police station being interrogated about a jewelry store robbery I had nothing to do with. Here's what you need to understand. Cover work isn't about lying. It's about committing to a second life so completely that even random chaos can't break it. When those police walked into the cafe and said, "You are coming with us," I had choices. I could have broken cover. I could have tried to explain. I could have called a contact number. I could have done a dozen things that might have gotten me out of that situation faster. Every single one of those options would have compromised the mission. So I stayed in character. I went with him. I sat in the cell. I answered the same questions over and over. I waited for the system to work. And the mission survived because Claude Fontaine was solid enough to withstand scrutiny. That's the test of good cover. Not whether it fools the enemy, though it has to do that, but whether it survives contact with the real world when the real world does something completely unpredictable. A jewelry store gets robbed, a description goes out, a cop sees a European guy in a dark jacket sitting alone in a cafe. He makes a reasonable assumption. He brings you in. And now everything depends on whether your legend holds up under bureaucratic scrutiny that has nothing to do with intelligence work. Most people think cover is a mask you put on. It's not. It's a life you inhabit. Claude Fontaine existed. He had history. He had business relationships. He had transactions and records and a phone number that rang to a real office. When the Egyptian police called Brussels at 11 o'clock at night and got no answer, that wasn't a flaw, that was realism. Real offices close. When they called back and someone confirmed Claude worked there, that was the cover working exactly as designed. But you have to commit completely. You can't be halfway. You can't drop the accent when you're alone. You can't let your real personality leak through, because the moment you do, you're blown. I learned this in the 70s in Southeast Asia. I learned it in the 80s everywhere else. You don't wear cover like a coat, you become it. And when chaos hits, when bad luck throws you into a situation you never planned for, you stay in it. Because the mission is bigger than your comfort, bigger than your fear, bigger than 4 hours in a cell wondering if everything's about to collapse. That's what separates people who can do this work from people who can't. The discipline to play the role perfectly when everything's going to hell. That's warrior discipline in the intelligence field. Let me leave you with this. That night in Cairo, sitting in a holding cell at 1 a.m, exhausted, worried, knowing my hotel room was sitting unguarded with intelligence that could blow everything. The hardest part wasn't the discomfort. It wasn't the uncertainty. It wasn't even the fear that they might search my room and find the cameras. The hardest part was knowing I could end it at any moment and choosing not to. I could have broken cover, made a call, fixed the problem, but that would have burned weeks of work and compromised people and operations I'll never be able to tell you about. So I chose to sit there and wait. That's patience, that's discipline, that's commitment, and it's the choice that defines you as an operator. Not the fights you win, not the targets you track, the choice to endure when you could escape, to protect the mission even when it costs you. You show up, you do the work, you handle the chaos, you commit completely. That's it. That's what it means to be a warrior in this field. Never quit, never break cover, never let random chance destroy what you've built. You stay in it until the job is done.